Joseph Hastings from GigEm247 out here at Kyle Field with Karels. We're following Texas A&M's 34-17 victory over the Florida Gators to improve to 6-0 in the season, 3-0 in conference play. Carter, what are your overall thoughts on how Texas A&M played, just your overall impressions from the game?
This game kind of flipped. Really strong start from the offense, 3 touchdowns in your first 3 drives. Defense didn't start very well, gave up 2 touchdowns first 3 drives. Florida's moving the ball down the field. I don't even think they had a 3rd down on their first couple touchdown drives. And then it flipped. Then the offense kind of struggled a little bit, and the defense really took over. And I think it just shows how this team can win in a lot of ways. Their offense has the explosiveness, has the weapons to score whenever, but they also have the defense that even if they struggle, they can turn it on, they can reach that other level. And it's just so impressive because last year it seemed like, when things went poorly, things could kind of spiral. But for this defense to have the start that they did and then to really just turn it around after that, I thought it was really impressive.
Speaking of defense, they held the Florida Gators to 1 of 10 on 3rd downs. Over the past 3 games, 2 of 33, they've held their opponents to on 3rd down. Can you kind of speak to that and just the importance of it, being able to get your defense off the field on 3rd downs, get the offense back, and just keep it rolling, especially when you have the ground game working like they do?
Yeah, we asked Albert Regis about it after the game, and he basically said the reason why they're so good on 3rd down is because they're good on 1st and 2nd down. And it's true. You see so many times opposing offenses getting 3rd and long, having negative plays on early downs. And once you're 3rd and 7 or longer against this defense, it's game over because, first of all, you've got Cassius Howell, who once again had a phenomenal game. I think he had 1 tackle, which was a sack, but it didn't really do it justice. The guy was a menace against Florida's left tackle, and also probably could have had 2 or 3 sacks. There was one time where he was held on what probably would have been a sack, and just another impressive game. Dayon Hayes continues to kind of ascend, had a strip sack and fumble recovery. Albert Regis had a strip sack, wasn't recovered, but this defense was just all over the place once again. And, Florida kind of came out the gate, was kind of quick gaming them a little bit, kind of some quick passes. And then they started to really go after Des Ricks in coverage. They had 2 deep balls against Des Ricks. He gave up a touchdown all in 1 drive. And, I tweeted about it at the time, Des Ricks really wasn't doing that poorly in coverage. DJ Lagway was just putting the ball on the money. Yeah. And those Florida receivers, whether you're talking about Dallas Wilson or some of their other guys, that's a really impressive group. And after that start, after those first couple touchdown drives, not only did you not really see this defense give up those explosive plays down the field, but you started to see more pressure. And Florida couldn't quite go to that quick game because they were getting themselves into 3rd and longs. And so, it's one of those deals where, a much different finish than a start for this defense.
And can you talk a little bit about the defense, especially as it pertains to the running attack, the opposing offense's running attacks over the past few games and what we've seen from them? You've seen a huge disparity between what Texas A&M's been able to do on the ground versus what their opponents have in conference play. How important is that for A&M to continue that trend?
Yeah, it's the 3rd straight game, I believe, that A&M's held its opponent under 100 rushing yards. And on the other end, you've got, a rushing attack that has been really good. I think last week, 300 yards versus 77 on the ground? Yeah. You're going to win games when you're doing that, when you're having the success on 3rd down. Florida, their running back, had a lot of success against Texas. Didn't do a whole lot tonight. And, I just feel like this defensive line has really come to play. The linebackers are starting to fit better. We've seen Damian Sanford really ascend ever since Scooby Williams went down, playing really great football. And the defense is tackling. I mean, you've had some missed tackles here and there from guys like Dalton Brooks, but the 1st and 2nd level, this defense is tackling well. And I just think it's so different than the defense we saw last year that just couldn't really get after the quarterback second half of the season, couldn't really tackle, couldn't stop the run, giving up a lot of big plays down the field. You might see that in glimpses with this defense, but then they really turn it up and tighten it up. And just the way they've been able to finish games, I think, is the most impressive. And it's just a sign of a physical team that's well conditioned. When you can finish games like that, and you're really starting to see them show up. Fourth quarter tonight, a huge performance from this defense.
Absolutely right. I mean, 3 points allowed after you mentioned that they scored 14 points. Florida did in their first 3 drives. And I think what was really important in this game, I think Texas A&M was going to win no matter what. But the fact that they were able to score so quickly after Florida, marched down the field in 8 plays, for them to have that 2-play drive and get points up immediately. How big do you think that was in terms of setting the tone for the offense, especially in that first half?
Yeah, I asked Marcel Reed about it after the game where, that first deep ball to Mario Craver, 67-yard throw right on the money to Mario Craver, first throw for Reed. And it's been a struggle for him. Before this game, 9 of 28 on passes of 20-plus yards from the line of scrimmage for Marcel Reed. And they went right out of the gate and completed that. And I asked Marcel about it, and he said, he was mad when Florida got the ball first because he knew that was going to be the first play for A&M tonight. And, boy, did that. Then he had the 8-yard rushing TD, second drive, score, third drive, touchdown. And this offense really put this team in a good position because, had they kind of gone through a slow start like they've had over the last couple weeks, well, maybe you're in a 14-0 hole, and it's a much different game plan where, Florida can maybe run the ball a little bit more and A&M is having to throw it a little bit more, but instead they had that response. They were able to answer score for score with Florida, and, the offense definitely faded as the game went on, but I think that strong start and putting up 34 points. Mike Elko has said, and I think it's true, this is the best defense that they've played so far. And even though it wasn't perfect last 2.5 quarters, putting up 34 points against this Florida defense, I think is very impressive.
I mean, the most they allowed coming into this game was 26 against Miami. So you're able to put up 34 points, especially when you mentioned like some of the struggles that they had toward the end of the game. And I think, that 2-play 75-yard drive to score the touchdown, and just how they were able to respond after Florida was able to get, another touchdown and tie it up, really kind of goes to show that this Texas A&M team can kind of switch. If the offense needs to take over, if the defense is getting off to a slow start, they can do that. If, the offense doesn't have things going like they kind of did at times with the Mississippi State and Auburn game, you'll see the defense really step up to the plate. That's a really good sign in terms of talking about this team as a potential championship contender, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's a win that Mike Elko called the most complimentary win that they've had this season. And at times we haven't seen the complimentary football, but we saw it a little bit more today, and just kind of that the flash of the offense where they can just score so quickly, and then the defense, maybe you think they're struggling, and then all of a sudden they get a sack from Howe. They're third and long, they get another sack. I mean, it's just it's a nice thing to have when you can win in multiple ways. And you think about like glaring weaknesses with this team, and there really isn't a lot. Like, you could maybe say penalties, but they only had 3 today. They only had 3, and one of them was on purpose. A delay of game that they took on purpose is the cleanest game that they played. And so I think what you're seeing too is it's a team that is just improving week after week. It's felt like since that Notre Dame win, they just keep getting better and better and finding new ways to win. And I think that's, a sign of a really great team.
Absolutely. And, they just wrapped up a 3-game homestand, beating Auburn, beating Mississippi State, beating Florida, starting 3-0 home. Now they've got a 3-game stretch on the road here, going at Arkansas, at LSU, bye week, and then going to Missouri. Just what are your thoughts heading into this stretch here for Texas A&M, being away from Kyle Field all the way up until November 15th against South Carolina? Yeah,
it's pretty crazy to think about. A lot of people will make a lot of that. Hey, your first 6 games, 5 of them were at Kyle Field, so that was nice. But now 4 of your last 6 are away from home, including 3 straight. A&M has had a huge advantage playing in this house. Now they've got to show that they can do it on the road, and they already have at Notre Dame. And Arkansas, maybe they're a little spicier with Bobby Petrino. We saw him give Tennessee a pretty good game on the road today. LSU and Missouri, certainly not teams you can take lightly. So a very tough stretch coming up. And I think a lot of what we'll be looking for over the next week is seeing the status of Le'Veon Moss.
Yeah.
Obviously went down midway through, early kind of on in the second quarter, was having a great game. I think he had 5 rushes, 46 yards, had a 22-yard touchdown where, broke a lot of tackles. And it was interesting to see it kind of all unfold because, he went down, looked to be in some pretty serious pain. And when you watch the broadcast, you see the trainers kind of tap on his right knee, and then they're kind of working on his left knee, and then they kind of help him off the field. And then the ESPN broadcast ended up saying it was a left ankle injury. And he went to the locker room at halftime, walked on his own power, but definitely looked a little gimpy. Coming out of halftime, ESPN, their broadcast said that they had been told that he is available for the rest of the game, so that could be a good sign. But he wasn't on the sideline, so I'm a little skeptical about that if he truly was available. Then we asked Mike Elko after the game, what's the status of Moss? He doesn't know yet. Maybe he'll have to go through more testing. We'll see, but we'll certainly keep you guys up to date with Moss. We'll talk to Mike Elko again on Monday. Certainly expect him to be asked about that. But, we've seen Ruben Owens step up in Moss's place. We saw what he did last week. Can he keep it up? Didn't have as strong of a game today, but, this offensive line I thought played really well. Didn't give up a sack, didn't give up a TFL. So when you have that, it certainly puts these running backs in a great situation. We saw Jamarian Morrow, the true freshman, really step up. And so I think that, we'll see the status with Moss. Certainly would be a huge loss, but with the way this offense is playing, it could be a little bit different last year playing without him compared to this year.
And we saw 7 carries out of Marcel recently. Do you think, we don't obviously want to project anything here, because like you said, we don't know Le'Veon's full status, but, if he was to be out for, any amount of time, do you think relying a little bit more on Marcel in the ground game would be to their benefit?
I think A&M's been hesitant to do that this year because, we've seen some of the injuries and how big it is for this quarterback room in the past. And Marcel Reed is kind of a smaller guy, right? Like he's a little wiry, a little shorter, right? So I don't know if you want to run him a whole bunch. I think last season they did because they needed it. But now when you have the weapons that this offense has, you only do it if you really like the look, if he wants to pull the ball because the look is so great. You saw what he did on that first drive where it was wide open, went untouched 8 yards into the end zone. So there are times I think it works, but I wouldn't go full on with it. I do think what's interesting is Jamarian Morrow, when Moss went down, Morrow, I think he was the number 2 back. It was Owens, and then it was a lot of Morrow that we saw. And so I'll be curious to see how that kind of shakes up. He's a true freshman that, ever since preseason camp, we've been hearing a ton of buzz about that kid. We've seen the flashes. He had his first career touchdown today on a big catch. And so, he's somebody that can, really give you a lot of juice when it comes to running the ball, but he can also do stuff, catching passes. Question maybe is, can he pass protect? Can you put him in those big situations? But you have to like what you've seen from him so far, for sure.
One of the drives I kind of wanted to highlight, along with that opening drive where they were able to go down in 2 plays and score, was the drive after Marcel Reed threw that interception. They were able to stop Florida on downs, near midfield, and then they kind of just took the ball out of his hands. A lot of rushing plays. What did you think about just kind of that approach? They seem to be just more content with making it a 2-possession game and not putting the ball in danger. What do you kind of think about that approach they took?
Yeah, I've got to rack up my brain because the game just runs all together to me. But, I do feel like, the last 10 drives for this defense, they only gave up 3 points. So there were times, like you mentioned, where it could have shifted the other way. I think at that time it was 24-17, and you just felt like Florida's 1 play away from really making this a scary situation. Taking out the crowd, and yikes. But not only did they get the stop, but A&M eventually was able to really use the clock to its advantage. They had a 12-play, 50-yard drive that lasted 8 minutes and 9 seconds. 50 yards in 8 minutes. That's like impossible. How do you even do that? They cap it with a 2-yard touchdown for Reuben Owens. And I felt like at that point, you know, it's 31-17 with like 4.5 minutes left. So maybe you're thinking, oh, okay, like, you know, like Florida's still in it. They got their timeouts. It's only 2 score. At that point, it seemed over because this defense had been playing so well that it really felt like if A&M took a 2-score lead, particularly on a touchdown, this game's over, and that's basically what they did. And then once it got to a point where Florida just had to pass it on every down, this defense could really pin its ears back and wreak havoc.
Definitely. Carter, anything else that you want to add? You know, we're wrapping up this post-game coverage, kind of looking ahead to Arkansas next week. You know, just what are your overall thoughts, and, you know, what would you like to leave the A&M fans with here?
6-0. It's first time since 2016, but also only the second time since 1994. I mean, I wasn't even alive in 1994. Were you alive in 1994?
I was not alive, no.
I mean, come on. I mean, how can you not be excited about Texas A&M football right now? Not only because of what they've done, but what's ahead of them. I mean, you look at that remaining schedule. Yeah, people are going to say, oh, 1 game at a time, but I'm telling you, the remaining schedule sets up well. Even though A&M's got to play away from home for a little bit, I really like how this plays out for A&M. You know, going into this week too, I think they had the #1 strength of record in the country, which is a big-time metric the committee uses for the playoff. And the more you win games like this, 17-point win, you know, that resume is going to look pretty darn good to the committee. And you know, I don't know how. I think I said this last week. I don't know how you don't rank this team like top 4 in the country now. You know, Ole Miss didn't look all that great today. He really struggled against Washington State. They were ahead of them in the poll. I would think that A&M would move ahead of Ole Miss and be at number 4, but I guess we'll have to see.
Definitely. Well, GigEm247 has you covered, all post-game coverage, recruiting coverage from yours truly here. We're going to be bringing a ton of stories and content to the site over the next couple of days. Be sure to stay tuned to that. And for GigEm247, this is Joseph Hastings, Carter Karels. We'll see you all in a few weeks. Thank you.